Welcome to NFL Nexus. You know, after a monster 14-win season that got them right to the doorstep of the Super Bowl, you'd think the Denver Broncos would be slamming their foot on the gas, right? Going all in to get over that final hurdle. But instead, it's been quiet. Almost too quiet. Today, we're going to deconstruct Denver's incredibly conservative 2026 offseason. It's a run-it-back strategy that might just be the biggest gamble of all, and it puts pretty much all the pressure squarely on the shoulders of their young QB, Bo Nix. Okay, let's get into it.
So here's what we're going to break down today. We're going to start with the move that left a big hole on their defensive line and the interesting way the team decided to fill it. Then we'll zoom out and show you how that one little move is actually part of a much bigger team-wide strategy. From there, we'll see how Denver's quiet approach compares to a proven, aggressive Super Bowl blueprint. And finally, we'll look at why this whole plan is so incredibly risky when you've got a young start quarterback like Bo Nix on a cheap rookie deal. And hey, before we jump in, if you like this kind of deep dive analysis, do us a huge favor, subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and please drop a comment below. Let us know what you think about what the Broncos are doing. We read every single one.
All right, so every offseason story has to start somewhere, right? It has a catalyst. And for the 2026 Denver Broncos, this whole thing kicks off not with a big, flashy signing, but with a pretty major subtraction, a move that created a really clear, obvious need on their roster. And that subtraction was this guy, defensive end John Franklin Myers, or JFM. Look, he wasn't just some guy on the depth chart. He was a key, versatile starter on that D-line. He could get after the quarterback, he could set the edge and stop the run, a do-it-all kind of player. So when he left for Tennessee, it wasn't just losing a roster spot. It was losing a reliable, high-energy veteran that they counted on. This immediately created a big, glaring hole on a defense that was, let's be honest, the rock of their success in 2025. So with JFM gone, the Broncos had a choice to make. How were they going to respond? I mean, were they going to go out and splash the cash on a big-name free agent pass rusher? Were they going to spend some serious capital to upgrade the position? Or were they going to look in-house and try to find a much cheaper solution? Well, the move they made next tells you everything you need to know about their entire offseason philosophy. So the Broncos' big answer to losing a key starter wasn't some household name. Nope, it was re-signing one of their own guys, defensive lineman Matt Henningsen. Now, on the surface, this just looks like a minor depth move, the kind of thing you see scroll by on the transaction wire and you forget about it 5 minutes later. But if you really dig in, Henningsen's story is the perfect example of the team's entire low-cost, high-hope approach this year. Man, talk about a career roller coaster. Henningsen comes into the league as a late-round pick and immediately looks like a steal, playing in every single game his first 2 years as a really solid rotational guy. But then, things just hit a wall. In 2024, he doesn't even make the team, spends the whole year on the practice squad. He signs a futures contract in 2025, which is basically a prove-it deal, hoping for a comeback, and then, boom. He suffers a devastating season-ending torn Achilles in camp. And now, after all that, he's the guy they're counting on to help fill that void left by a proven starter. It's an awesome story of resilience, for sure, but it's also a huge, huge risk for the team. So why are the Broncos so intrigued? It all comes down to this number, 9.33. That's Henningsen's relative athletic score, or RAS. It's basically a metric that grades a player's athletic testing against everyone who's ever played their position. Now, even though he was a productive player in college at Wisconsin, he got snubbed from the Senior Bowl, snubbed from the NFL Combine. But at his pro day, he put up an elite 9.33 out of 10. This number basically screams that he has the raw athletic talent of a top-tier player, even if his career hasn't totally shown it yet. So the Broncos are betting big on that untapped potential, hoping he can finally put it all together after coming back from one of the toughest injuries in all of sports. And there's a real human side to this too. When Henningsen went down with that Achilles injury, head coach Sean Payton was clearly emotional about it, telling the media, "I hate that for him." It just goes to show you that the organization really has a soft spot for this player and his journey. They're not just signing a name on a spreadsheet. They're bringing back a guy they truly believe in, a classic underdog that they're rooting for. But, at the end of the day, the cold, hard question is still there. Is believing in an underdog's potential really enough to replace a proven, productive starter? Okay, so the Henningsen signing is super interesting, but it's not a one-off. Let's zoom out now. Because this one move is just a single piece of a much larger puzzle. It's part of a very deliberate team-wide pattern of playing it safe and prioritizing keeping the band together over making big upgrades, a philosophy we're just going to call running it back. Let's look at running back, for example. The Broncos re-signed J.K. Dobbins on a deal worth about $10 million a year. Now, when Dobbins is healthy, he is an absolute stud, but when healthy is doing a lot of work there. In a career where he could have played in over 100 games, he's only been on the field for 47 of them because of major injuries. Now compare that to Travis Etienne, who signed with the Jags for just $3 million more a year. Etienne has played in every single game of his career except for 2. For just a little bit more cash, the Jags bought themselves an Iron Man. The Broncos chose to save the money and take on a massive injury risk at a position that is critical for helping out a young quarterback. And the story's the same at tight end. Instead of going out and finding an upgrade in a pretty deep free agent market, the Broncos just decided to re-sign their entire group from last season: Adam Troutman, Nate Adkins, and Lucas Kroll. The theme is becoming crystal clear. Keep the same guys, maintain continuity, and just hope they get better on their own. But here's the real problem with that thinking. The continuity they're preserving is with a group that was, according to Pro Football Focus, part of a bottom 5 tight end room in the NFL last year. The analysis showed that Denver passed on younger, more explosive talent, guys who would have only cost maybe $1.5 million more per year than what they paid to bring back Adam Troutman, who himself graded out as one of the worst blocking tight ends in the league. They are literally pinching pennies at the expense of giving their young QB better weapons and better protection. So when you put it all together, the high-risk bet on the defensive line, the gamble on health at running back, the decision to stick with an underperforming tight end group, a very clear picture starts to form. The Broncos aren't just being a little cautious. They seem dead set on only bringing their own guys back. It's not 1 or 2 moves. This is a full-blown strategy. It's a bet on familiarity over new talent. And as we're about to see, that strategy flies directly in the face of how pretty much every modern champion is built. All right, before we get into how this strategy compares to the rest of the league, just a quick word. A lot of you have asked for ways to support the channel, and we're so excited to share our new line of NFL Nexus coloring books. Seriously, they're perfect for fans of all ages, for your kids, your grandkids, or heck, even for you if you're just looking to unwind during the off-season. You can check them out using the link in the description or by just scanning the QR code on your screen right now. Your support really does help us keep making these deep dive explainers for you. We really appreciate it. Okay, so we've established the Broncos' internal strategy of running it back. Now, let's pull the camera back and see how that philosophy actually stacks up against the proven championship-winning formulas that we see all across the rest of the NFL. This right here, this might be the single most important side in this entire explainer. Just let that sink in for a second. Since 2018, pretty much every single team to make it to the Super Bowl has been an active, aggressive player in free agency. That's not a coincidence, folks. It's a clear historical trend. It's the blueprint for how you build a contender in today's NFL. Sitting on your hands is not part of the winning formula. So this really creates 2 completely different paths to building a champion. On one side, you've got the Broncos way. Re-sign your own guys, keep things familiar, and mostly stay away from that first wave of free agency where all the top talent gets signed. And on the other side, you've got the Super Bowl blueprint. Be aggressive, go make those big splashes, and bring in impact players from the outside to push your team over the top. And look, this isn't just a theory. We have hard proof from the most recent Super Bowl. Just look at the Seahawks. They went out and made big moves for guys like Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, and the dominant pass rusher DeMarcus Lawrence. All huge difference makers. And the Patriots? They brought in a whole army of key players. Robert Spillane, Milton Williams, Harold Landry, Morgan Moses, Carlton Davis. You get the idea. These teams didn't just stand still. They went out and actively made their rosters better from the outside. Which leads us to this massive question. When the evidence is this clear, you really have to ask, are the Broncos just choosing to ignore a proven winning formula? Are they making a huge strategic mistake by zigging while every other recent champion has zagged? It's a question that really just hangs over their entire offseason. Now look, this conservative strategy would be a little concerning for any team. But for the Denver Broncos right now, it is especially dangerous. And the reason for that comes down to one person, their most important asset, their biggest advantage, their young quarterback, Bo Nix. Let's talk about the biggest cheat code in the entire NFL, the rookie quarterback contract window. For the first 4 or 5 years of a good QB's career, he gets paid way, way less than a veteran star. This gives the team a massive financial advantage. We're talking millions and millions of dollars in extra cap space that you can use to load up the rest of the team with elite talent. This window, without a doubt, is the single greatest competitive advantage a team can possibly have. And this is exactly the point. With Bo Nix on his cheap rookie deal, this is the moment. Now is the time to be bold. Now is the time to spend that money you're saving on your QB to take shots on top-tier free agents, to raise the whole team's ceiling with proven veterans, and to be aggressive and push all your chips into the middle of the table. Instead of sitting on the sidelines to save a few $1,000,000, the Broncos are in the exact window where spending isn't just a good idea, it's a strategic necessity if you want to win a Super Bowl.
Okay, so let's wrap this all up. Let's calculate the very real, very tangible risks the Broncos are taking on with this passive run-it-back strategy. Because this isn't just about a difference in philosophy, it's about the very real challenges that are now piling up in front of them for the 2026 season. Okay, risk number one, the schedule. In 2025, the Broncos had the benefit of a third-place schedule, which meant they played other teams that didn't finish so well the year before. But because they won their division, in 2026, they get hit with a brutal first-place schedule. As you can see from this chart, the difficulty level is about to jump way, way up. They're going to be playing a gauntlet of other division winners, which makes every single week tougher.
Now, you might look at this number, 14 wins last season, and think, come on, they'll be fine. They were a great team. And you're right. Winning 14 games is incredibly impressive. It's the whole reason there's so much optimism in Denver, and it's probably why the front office feels so confident in their decision to just keep the status quo. That number is the foundation of their entire run-it-back argument.
But, and this is a massive but, you have to look at how they got to those 14 wins. A lot of those victories were absolute nail-biters, these super tight one-score games that could have easily gone the other way with just one bad bounce or one different penalty call. Analysts have a term for this, regression to the mean. It basically says that teams who win a ton of close games are often getting a little bit lucky, and that luck is very, very hard to count on year after year. So their 14-win record, while totally real, might not have been as dominant as it looked on paper, which makes running it back with the same exact roster against a much harder schedule, well, it's incredibly risky.
And that leaves us with this one last lingering thought. The Broncos front office chose what they think is the safe path, right? Continuity, familiarity, saving a few bucks. But in doing so, are they wasting the golden opportunity of Bo Nix's rookie contract? Are they ignoring the proven blueprint for how you build a champion in this league? Are they just betting that their luck in close games will hold up against a much tougher schedule? It all comes down to this. By trying to play it safe, are the Denver Broncos actually taking the biggest risk of all? Only time will tell, but the path they've chosen is a dangerous one.